committee, they set up, they do their ceremonial opening, they do everything, they hand over the report to His Excellency, whether the governor or the local government chairman or the president. That is the end. Dust out all those reports. All the problems we are having in the country, the panacea has been there in the various successive reports of the investigations carried out over the years. Yeah. But the willingness to implement those recommendations is missing.
Okay, I think we'll continue with that discussion in the next session, so to speak.
Yes.
I still be with you, the General will wind up.
Yes.
What is the way forward? Let's start from the roots, from the beginning. The issue of value system.
Everybody should believe that he is a representative of God towards ensurance of coordinated governance in the country. Everybody has a role. If you take it because somebody is in the government, you are missing it. Everybody should partake and have a role. And we should review our constitution. Those strategic institutions, traditional institutions, religious institutions, community leaders, elder statesmen should be given roles in society.
Well, I think really, I agree, and that's why I even mentioned it. Every country has its core values. What are our core values? All our us unique as a people. And even in our diversity, if you check across the whole ethnic groups in Nigeria, you will find out that we have so many common values. We have respect for each other. Go as a visitor to a place and you see the type of hospitality you will get from Nigeria. We are very hospitable people. But all of a sudden, something has gone wrong. So I believe the starting point is our value, our core values. What are our core values? And these core values should be introduced right from kindergarten to primary, through tertiary institution, and you will find out that people will grow with those same values some of us grew up with when we were growing up, because we learned them right from primary school and from our homes and from the school.
Somebody was saying that perhaps that was the secrets of the Asian nations when you talk about China and Japan, for instance.
Yes.
Going back to the roots, the value system, which is inherent in them, something like that. Thank you, General, for honoring our invitation. And Dr. Maynes Rakobo Umar, thank you very much for coming. I forgot to mention that the General is CFR.
This is the network service of the NTA.
Let me give phone to Smally, make I follow her.
Go. It's Wasiu, your driver.
Hey! Wasiu! The video call! Oh, Kaka!
Mommy! With my Glow 4G, I can now upload my cars online, sell and make plenty profit. Guess what they call me now, mommy? The new mega online car dealer.
Wasiu! Strike now when the iron is hot.
See, we won't be like Shaki.
I will come and meet you specially and bring one big one for you.
Why you won't see me?
Your daughter. I want to marry her.
You know where? I've been wanting to do it.
Hello?
When Glow 4G day of you, confidence must be body. Data is oxygen. Glow 4G, the new speed of life. Your #1 4G network nationwide. The very best from Glow, the grandmasters of data.
Cubes wishes you all a very happy 59th Independence Day. One taste, one aroma, one Nigeria.
The sound of your shutter hails you as your flash falls on everyday people. In this country of party and daily blackouts, your camera they snap memories they go. Even though 30 billion not in your account, still you continue to push and believe. And that girl, now you go marry her. That business now go spoil for your hand. Because at Union Bank, there's a loan for everyone. Apply today. Union Bank, your simpler, smarter bank.
I should be on golden accessories. I should do bad.
Mommy, it's not too early to be dressed.
Too early, get. I don't buy buses now.
Okay.
You think say I go miss all the small shop and all the rishi?
Mommy.
Shebi na that caterer when they come out, they get side mirror you take. And as for my women group, hey, na KSA or nothing at all. Hey.
Now when you get my
familiar Jare. Pikin.
Mommy, your credit still there, so?
Of course now. Now we the first credit like water. You not trust Glow?
Glow and Mebo. Get 5 times your recharge to call all networks. Recharge with *555*PIN#.
You want to know where the party they shall? Start here.
Glow Unlimited.
What we are really cultivating here is a better future for all Nigerian women. And it's not always easy. Panadol Extra relieves headache, backache, joint pain, toothache, and menstrual pain. The pain is worth it.
Cubes wishes you all a very happy 59th Independence Day. One taste, one aroma, one Nigeria.
I want marry. She dey come my house today. I'm gonna tell her to marry me.
Remember what I taught you about playing music from the internet?
I'm gonna play romantic music for her. The body remains small, make it done. Will you marry me? I have a surprise for you. Google, play me a romantic music. Everything is okay. Network is shaky. Google, play me a romantic music. Google, play me a romantic music.
Don't let poor internet ruin special moments. Join the super fast and reliable 4G network and double data.
Now the watch.
This is the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA. We now bring to you a special broadcast to the nation by His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Federal Republic of Nigeria, to mark Nigeria's 59th independence anniversary.
Dear compatriots, 1st October each year is an opportunity for us to reflect and thank God for His endless blessings on our country. It is also time for us collectively to remember the sacrifices made by our founders and great leaders first, by soldiers, by distinguished public servants, by traditional leaders, by our workers, sacrifices on which Nigeria has been built over the 59 years since independence in 1960, and rededicate ourselves to attaining the goals which we have set for ourselves, a united, prosperous, and purposeful nation in the face of the 21st century opportunities and challenges. In the past 4 years, the majority of Nigerians have committed to change for the better. Indeed, this administration was re-elected by Nigerians on a mandate to deliver positive and enduring change through maintaining our national security, restoring sustainable and inclusive economic growth and development, and fighting corruption against all internal and external threats. This change can only be delivered if we are united in purpose as individuals and as a nation. We must all remain committed to achieving this positive and enduring change. As I stated 4 years ago, change does not just happen. We must change our lawless habits, our attitude to public office, and public trust. Simply put, to bring about change, we must change ourselves by being law-abiding citizens. Good governance and economic development cannot be sustained without an environment of peace and security. In the last 4 years, we have combated the terrorist scourge of Boko Haram. We owe a debt of gratitude to our gallant men and women in arms, through whose efforts we have been able to achieve the present results. We are also grateful to our neighbors and allies within the region and across the world who have supported us on this front. The capacity of our armed forces to defend our territorial integrity continues to be enhanced by the acquisition of military hardware, as well as continued improvements in the working conditions of our servicemen and women. The Ministry of Police Affairs has been resuscitated to oversee the development and implementation of strategies to enhance internal security. My recent assent to the Nigerian Police Trust Fund Establishment Act has created a legal framework to support our police with increased fiscal resources to enhance their law enforcement capabilities. These initiatives are being complemented by the ongoing recruitment of 10,000 constables into the Nigerian police force. This clearly demonstrates our commitment to arrest the incidents of armed robbery, kidnapping, and other violent crimes across our nation. We remain equally resolute in our efforts to combat militant attacks on our oil and gas facilities in the Niger Delta and accelerate the Ogoni cleanup to address long-standing environmental challenges in that region. The recent redeployment of the Niger Delta Development Commission from the Office of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation to the Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs underscores our commitment to enhance the living standards of our communities in the Niger Delta through coordinated and appropriate programs. Our attention is increasingly being focused on cyber crimes and the abuse of technology through hate speech and other divisive material being propagated on social media. Whilst we uphold the constitutional rights of our people to freedom of expression and association, where the purported exercise of these rights infringes on the rights of other citizens or threatens to undermine our national security, we will take firm and decisive action. In this regard, I reiterate my call for all to exercise restraint, tolerance, and mutual respect in airing their grievances and frustrations. Whilst the ongoing national discourse on various political and religious issues is healthy and welcome, we must not forget the lessons of our past, lessons that are most relevant on a day such as this. The path of hatred and distrust only leads to hostility and destruction. I believe that the vast majority of Nigerians would rather tread the path of peace and prosperity as we continue uphold and cherish our unity. This administration inherited a skewed economy where oil sector comprised only 8% of gross domestic product but contributed 70% of government revenue and 90% foreign exchange earnings over the years. Past periods of relatively high economic growth were driven by our reliance on oil sector revenues to finance our demand for imported goods and services. Regrettably, previous governments abandoned the residual investment-driven non-oil sector, which constituted 40% of gross domestic product and comprised agriculture, livestock, agro-processing, arts, entertainment, mining and manufacturing activities that provide millions of jobs for able-bodied Nigerians and utilize locally available raw materials and labor for production. To address this imbalance, our commitment to achieving economic diversification has been at the heart of our economic strategies under the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, which I launched on 5th of April 2017. The medium-term development plan charted the trajectory for our economy to exit from recession and return to the path of sustainable, diversified, and inclusive growth for Nigerians. Pursuant to these reforms, the economy has recovered and we have had 9 successive quarters of growth since our exit from recession. The exchange rate in the last 3 years has remained stable, with robust reserves of $42.5 billion United States dollars, up from $23 billion United States dollars in October 2016. Learning from the mistakes of the past, this administration is committed to responsibly managing our oil wealth endowments. We will continue to prudently save our oil income and invest more in the non-oil job-creating sectors. In this regard, we are significantly increasing investment in critical infrastructure. Last year, capital releases only commenced with the approval of the budget in June 2018. However, as at 20th June this year, up to 1.74 trillion naira has been released for capital projects in the 2018 fiscal year. Implementation of the 2019 capital budget, which was only approved in June 2019, will be accelerated to ensure that critical priority projects are completed or substantially addressed. The Ministry of Finance, Budget and National Planning has been directed to release 600 billion naira for capital expenditure in the next 3 months. To maximize impact, we shall continue to increasingly welcome and encourage private capital for infrastructural development through public-private partnership. Through the Road Infrastructure Tax Credit Scheme, which I initiated in January this year, we are giving incentives to private sector inflow of over 205 billion naira in 19 Nigerian roads and bridges of 794.4 kilometers in 11 states of the Federation. As we push to diversify the economy, we still remain focused on optimizing the revenues generated from the oil and the gas sector. We will, working with the legislature, soon pass the Petroleum Industry Bill and amendments to the Deep Offshore Act and Inland Basin Production Sharing Contracts Act into law to ensure government obtains a fair share of oil revenues whilst encouraging private sector investment. We will also continue our fight against illegal bunkering of crude oil and the smuggling of refined petroleum products across our borders, including the diligent prosecution and conviction of offenders found guilty of these acts. Whilst Nigeria remains committed to free and fair continental and international trade, we will not hesitate to take all necessary steps to tackle illegal smuggling, transshipment, and other predatory trade practices that destroy jobs in our country. We are resolute in reforming the power sector. In August this year, we launched the Presidential Power Initiative to modernize the national grid in 3 phases, starting from 5 gigawatts to 7 gigawatts, then to 11 gigawatts by 2023, and finally 25 gigawatts afterwards. This program, in partnership with the German government and Siemens, will provide end-to-end electrification solutions that will resolve our transmission and distribution challenges. The program will also look to localize the development and assembly of smart meters, as well as operations and maintenance capabilities of transmission and distribution infrastructure. I am pleased with the improved interagency collaboration between the Ministry of Power and the regulators in the banking and power sectors to ensure that electricity sales, billings, and collections are automated and become cashless. These initiatives are important to ensure that the technical and collection losses in the sector are substantially reduced. I remain confident that Nigerians will have affordable and uninterrupted electricity supply in the not too distant future. Our efforts to improve the power sector will complement other infrastructure investments projects under the Presidential Infrastructure Development Fund, which is investing in the Mambila Power Plant project, as well as key economic road infrastructure such as the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, Second Niger Bridge, and Abuja-Kano Expressway. The first set of these projects remain on track to be completed by 2022. Our journey to food security and self-sufficiency is well underway. We have made remarkable progress in almost all segments of the agriculture value chain, from fertilizers to rice to animal feed production. We shall sustain these policies to ensure additional investments are channeled, thereby creating more jobs in the sector. We must not go back to the days of importing food and thereby exporting jobs. Our commitment to achieving macroeconomic stability and economic diversification has been underscored by the merger of the Ministry of Finance with the Ministry of Budget and National Planning. This combined ministry has the important mandate to enhance the management of domestic and global fiscal risks, coordinate policies with the trade and monetary authorities, raise and deploy revenues to fund budgeted expenditure, and integrate annual budgets and medium-term fiscal strategies. With this, our revenue-generating and reporting agencies will come under much greater scrutiny. Going forward, the new performance management framework will reward exceptional revenue performance, while severe consequences will attend failures to achieve agreed revenue targets. I recently constituted an Economic Advisory Council to advise me on inclusive and sustainable macroeconomic, fiscal, and monetary policies. This independent body will work with relevant cabinet members and the heads of key monetary, fiscal, and trade agencies to ensure we remain on track as we strive for collective prosperity. However, we are also committed to ensure that the inconvenience associated with any painful policy adjustments is moderated, such that the poor and the vulnerable who are most at risk do not bear the brunt. Our ongoing 500 billion naira sufficient intervention program continues to target these vulnerable groups through the homegrown school feeding program, government economic empowerment program, Empower Job Creation Program, loans for traders and artisans, conditional cash transfers to the poorest families, and social housing scheme. To institutionalize these impactful programs, we created the Ministry for Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management, and Social Development, which shall consolidate and build on our achievements to date. To the beneficiaries of these programs, I want to reassure you that our commitment to social inclusion will only increase. Our population growth rate remains among the highest in the world, presenting both challenges as well as opportunities. It is our collective responsibility to ensure that we provide adequate resources to meet the basic needs of our teeming youth. Accordingly, we shall continue to invest in education, health, water and sanitation, as well as food security, to ensure that their basic needs are met while providing them with every opportunity to live peaceful, prosperous, and productive lives. On fighting corruption, our institutional reforms to enforce the Treasury single account policy, introduce the Whistleblowers Initiative, expand the coverage of the integrated payroll personnel and information system, as well as the government integrated management information system, have saved billions of naira over the last 4 years and deterred the rampant theft and mismanagement of the public funds that have plagued our public service. The Ministry of Justice, the Independent Corrupt Practices Commission, and the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission will continue to address this menace. We are determined to ensure that transparency and good governance are institutionalized in public service. We must commit to installing a culture of good governance in all we do. This administration has fought against corruption by investigating and prosecuting those accused of embezzlement and the misuse of public resources. We have empowered teams of prosecutors, assembled detailed databases of evidence, traced the proceeds of crimes, and accelerated recovery of stolen funds. Furthermore, we partnered with our friends abroad to combat tax evasion, smuggling, terrorism, and illicit financial flows. In June 2018, I assented to the Mutual Assistance in Criminal Matters Act to provide a domestic legal framework for obtaining international assistance in criminal matters. This measure has already strengthened our law enforcement agencies in obtaining evidence, investigating suspects, and facilitating the recovery, forfeiture, and confiscation of property implicated as proceeds of crime. An example is the 300 million United States dollars recently identified as part of the Abacha money laundering case, working closely with the government of the United States of America. The Federal Ministry of Justice is working with the United States Department of Justice to conclude a memorandum of understanding to expedite the repatriation of these funds. The P&ID Arbitral Award has underscored the manner in which significant economic damage has been caused by the past activities of a few corrupt and unpatriotic Nigerians. The policies that we are putting in place today are to ensure such criminal and unpatriotic acts do not go without consequences. Our renewed partnership with the Ninth National Assembly will facilitate the swift passage of enabling laws that will institutionalize these anti-corruption efforts in our criminal justice system. In this connection, I call upon our states to intensify their own efforts to instill greater fiscal transparency and accountability, and to ensure greater fiscal efficiency and optimum use of our very scarce resources. The blight of corruption is fighting back. Nevertheless, this is a battle that we shall see through, and this is a war which we shall win by the grace of God. I will also call upon all Nigerians from every walk of life to combat corruption at every turn by choosing to question and confront corrupt practices, by reporting unethical practices, or through whistleblowing. Together, we can overcome corruption and will no longer be a country defined by corruption. Fellow Nigerians, let me reiterate my call for unity across our dear nation. Nigeria will emerge from our present challenges stronger and more resilient than ever, but only if all of us join hands to entrench good governance, foster inclusive economic development, and defend and protect our nation from all those who would wish us ill. I thank you all. I thank you most sincerely and wish you a happy Independence anniversary. May God bless you all, and may He continue to bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
This used to be me. But that was before I got the perfect bag. It's handy and easy to use. All I need in one compact space. Just my MTN Extra Value plan. I used to get one plan for my calls and then try to remember which data plan worked for me. Roaming was a totally different ballgame. Not anymore. I've got the MTN Extra Value all-in-one plan. If you're a data buff like me, you get extra data with some talk time. And if you like to make calls, you get extra talk time with some data. And when I'm abroad, I automatically browse, chat, and call right on the same plan. MTN Extra Value was made just for me.
More of data or calls, whichever one you prefer. MTN Extra Value is made just for you.
What makes a nation truly unstoppable? It's being able to push in the face of odds, rise above limitations, and realize that everyone's effort counts when it comes to nation building. What makes us unstoppable? It's when we work together as a team without letting our differences hold us back. There's no stopping the Nigerian dream. Reach for your peak, Nigeria. Happy Independence Day.
Ute. Let me give phone to Smally, make I follow her.
Go. It's Wasiu, your former driver.
Hey! Wasiu! The video call! Oh, Kako!
Mommy. With my Glow 4G, I can now upload my cars online, sell and make plenty profit. Guess what they call me now, mommy? The new mega online car dealer.
Wasiu! Strike now when the iron is hot.
See, we won't be like Shaki.
I will come and meet you specially and bring one big wine for you.
Why you won't see me?
Your daughter. I want to marry her.
You know well? I've been wanting to do it.
Hello?
When Glow 4G day of you, confidence must stay body. Data is oxygen. Glow 4G, the new speed of life. Your number one 4G network nationwide. The very best from Glow, the grandmasters of data.
The 59th Independence Planning Committee wishes to inform all invited guests to the 2019 anniversary dinner and gala night to be held at the Conference Center of the State House on Tuesday, 1st October 2019 at 6 p.m. that they are to park their vehicles at the Eagle Square where buses have been provided to convey them to the State House. Members of the Diplomatic Corps will, however, be allowed to drive in their vehicles to the venue of the dinner. Boss Mustafa, Secretary to the Government of the Federation and Chairman Planning Committee, announcer.
Aṣọ àwọn golden accessories. Aṣọ tó bad.
Mommy, is it not too early to be dressed?
Too early, ke? Sure. I don't dey side buses now.
Okay.
You think say I go miss all the small shop and all the orishi?
Mommy.
Shebi na that caterer when they comot dey get side mirror you take. And as for my women group, hey, na KSA or nothing at all.
Now when you get mouth?
You're familiar, Jare. My pikin.
Mommy, your credit still there, so?
Of course now. Now we dey fetch credit like water. You not trust Glow?
Glow and Mepo. Get 5 times your recharge to call all networks. Recharge with *555*PIN#.
You want know where the party dey shele? Not here.
Glow Unlimited.
President Buhari addresses Nigerians as the nation marks 59th independence anniversary.
I believe that the vast majority of Nigerians would rather tread the path of peace and prosperity as we continue to uphold and cherish our unity.
Turn entrepreneurs, get startup capital as second edition of National Youth Empowerment Summit ends in Abuja.
Federal government promises adequate funding for the judiciary as President Buhari inaugurates National Industrial Court Complex.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall discuss President Buhari's Independence Day broadcast and a Nigerian story at 59, part 2.
Today is 1st of October, a day when Nigeria got her independence 59 years ago from Britain.
In years past, the 1st of October was usually marked with a great deal of merriment, particularly amongst the younger generation who always look forward to the day of festivities and its enjoyment.
You're right, Kingsley. The day used to provide a platform, I remember vividly, for youths, especially in primary and secondary school, to participate, and showcase their talents in march parts and other extracurricular activities.
But such elaborate celebrations are no longer organized on a grand scale. However, the federal government is gradually bringing back the celebrations with the staging of various events to mark the day.
This year's celebration, which began on Monday, the 23rd of September, witnessed a series of activities ranging from photo exhibition, special prayers in mosques and churches, National Youth Entrepreneurship Empowerment Summit, as well as a youth concert.
Well, Jumai, lots of activities, you would say, but that, of course, is not all. The president, we heard a while ago, made a special Independence Day broadcast to the nation, while other ceremonies are still lined up to climax the celebration.
The 53-paragraph nationwide broadcast touched a wide range of issues, including good governance, security, anti-corruption crusade, accelerating sustainable and inclusive economic growth, as well as social investment programs.
In a broadcast, President Buhari said that Nigeria, of course, will emerge from current challenges much stronger and more resilient than it had ever been if all Nigerians join hands to entrench good governance, foster inclusive economic growth and development, and defend and protect the nation from all those who would wish us ill.
Now, in continuation of our series on the 59th Independence Anniversary, we shall discuss the President broadcast and the second part of the Nigerian story. Thanks for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria. Happy Independence Anniversary to you all. I am Jumai Yusuf. Thanks for joining us.
And I'm Kingsley Osadola. Good to have you with us on this special edition of Good Morning Nigeria, being broadcast live as always on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We're right here at the Abuja headquarters studios, and I join my colleague Jumai in wishing Nigerians and indeed all friends of Nigeria happy Independence Anniversary. And of course, in the course of today's program, we shall have the complimentary segments, and this will include business and newspaper review, plus one or two others if we have the time, Jumai, to run through, because we've had a lot of time taken by the President broadcast. Now, let's join Habiba Oladipo for the highlights of the morning news. Good morning, Habiba.
Good morning, Kingsley. Good morning, Jumai. Good morning, Nigerians. And here is the morning news. President Muhammadu Buhari says time has come for all Nigerians to bury their differences and work assiduously towards achieving a united, prosperous and purposeful nation. He is optimistic that in the face of the 21st century opportunities and challenges, Nigeria will emerge stronger and more resilient than ever. The president, in a nationwide broadcast marking the nation's 59th independence anniversary, also made a clear case for combating corruption at every turn.
We shall continue to invest in education, health, water and sanitation, as well as food security, to ensure that the basic needs of our teeming youth are met, while providing them with every opportunity to live peaceful, prosperous and productive lives. I will also call upon all Nigerians from every walk of life to combat corruption at every turn. Together, we can overcome corruption and will no longer be a country defined by corruption.
The United States of America President Donald Trump has extended his warm regards to the people and President of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, for the 59th Independence Anniversary celebration. In a statement issued by the American Embassy, President Trump described Nigeria as America's greatest partner in Africa. He said Nigeria and the U.S. share common goals on expanding trade and growing economic relations, as well as partnership in the fight against terrorism. President Trump applauded efforts of the Buhari administration in kicking out Boko Haram and ISIS West Africa. 10 youth entrepreneurs have emerged winners of 1 million naira each as financial grants and startup capital in the second edition of the National Entrepreneurship Empowerment Summit organized by the Buhari administration to mark Nigeria's 59th independence anniversary. Vice President Yemi Oshibajo, who was represented at the event, says the program will be sustained to impact on more Nigerians.
Release your creativity and pursue your dreams so that you can play your part in the building of our dear nation.
We believe that an investment into the lives of young Nigerians will go a long way in actualizing the dreams of not only of our heroes past, but also that of President Muhammadu Buhari.
This is amazing. I just won 1 million naira that I'm going to put to very good use. I was just told that we'll be coached concerning how not to waste the money and how to put the money into our business in the most effective way.
And to other matters, President Muhammadu Buhari says the nation's judiciary will continue to be adequately funded by his administration to effectively discharge his responsibilities of interpreting and applying the law as watchdog for equal practice in the country. Inaugurating the annex building of the National Industrial Court of Nigeria headquarters in Abuja, the president, however, called for concerted efforts by the three arms of government towards safeguarding all rights of Nigerians through fair justice delivery.
Simply put, all Nigerians, regardless of ethnicity, religion, and politics, deserve peaceful and prosperous lives. Nigerians deserve fair justice delivery. It is therefore our collective duty to work collaboratively to ensure that such rights are safeguarded.
The Speaker, House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, has commended traditional rulers for their roles in ensuring peaceful coexistence within their domain. The Speaker gave the commendation while hosting some royal fathers from Akoko West, Akoko East Federal Constituency of Ondo State.
As you know, if you are following the 9th Assembly, we believe in what we call a joint task, that to build this country, it has to be a joint task of everybody, including your good selves. Many people talk about the fourth realm, or the fourth arm of the realm. They talk about the journalists, and I'm sorry, journalists, I know they're here, but we consider our traditional chiefs the real fourth arm of the republic.
And those are the stories highlight for now. The program continues shortly with Kingsley and Jume after this break. Do have a happy independence celebration.
The 59th Independence Planning Committee wishes to inform all invited guests to the 2019 anniversary dinner and gala night to be held at the Conference Center of the State House on Tuesday, 1st October 2019 at 6 p.m. that they are to park their vehicles at the Eagle Square, where buses have been provided to convey them to the State House. Members of the Diplomatic Corps will, however, be allowed to drive in their vehicles to the venue of the dinner. Boss Mustafa, Secretary to the Government of the Federation and Chairman Planning Committee, announcer.
Remember that Njarinya was telling her I want marry. She dey come my house today. I wanna tell her to marry me. Remember what I taught you about playing music from the internet? I wanna play romantic music for her. The phone is very small, make it done. Will you marry me? A surprise for you. We will play me a romantic music. Everything is okay. Network is shaky. We will play me a romantic music. We will play me a romantic music.
Don't let poor internet ruin special moments. Join the super fast and reliable 4G network and get double data.
Now the watch.
The new edition of TV Guide is out, exclusively taking a look at the traditional television and new media. Are they comparable or complementary? Media industry players give perspective on the trends, progress, challenges, and the way forward. Find out on this compelling edition of TV Guide. Expository interviews with stars of the team within our space. Becky Madojemo of NTA, Utibe Umore of AIT, Nifemi Oguntai of TVC, and a host of others. TV Guide, your indispensable companion, also feature Iya Medina.
I'm the CEO, managing director of Iya Medina Sister Restaurant. I choose to serve. Shut up your mouth. Let me finish.
A TV drama series on NTA. Let's get to meet the characters behind Iya Medina. This edition also presents exciting features on tourism, culture, entertainment, sports, health, and lots more. Grab a copy at the vendors near you or any NTA station nationwide. TV Guide, your indispensable companion.
E don reach 50 years now when that program wey they call village headmaster begin. Una know the program now. That program when all of una dey run go home go look for una television.
I want you now to formally tender your apology to Headmaster Ali for causing him so much embarrassment.
Na 50 years now. So because of that, we won't get big party when we will start everything for the 8th of October till the 11th of October. Now me and my body invite you now, and my belly just the sweet. Because I don't say all those people they drink my party, then go come drink the tombo again. And me, radio Jamebo, they call you now, they will not forget.
Welcome back. Time now for business news. Abdul Karim Zurmi has details.
The World Bank Doing Business team announced Nigeria as one of the top 20 improvers in doing business out of 190 countries ahead of the 24th October release of the 2020 World Bank Doing Business rankings. The World Bank Doing Business report acknowledged the various reforms led by the PEBIC in the areas of operationalizing a new electronic platform that integrates the Tax Authority and the Corporate Affairs Commission, among others. The Special Advisor to the President on Ease of Doing Business, Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, said the recognition is significant, saying the validation confirms that the federal government's strategy is effective and it will continue to evolve better measures to improve ease of doing business. Meanwhile, Vice President Yemi Osibanjo has appealed to financial institutions in the country to support federal government's efforts at reviving micro, small, and medium enterprises. The Vice President, who made the appeal at the 12th Annual Banking and Finance Conference in Abuja, noted that the Buhari administration remains committed to lifting 100 million Nigerians from poverty as soon as possible. The call some small business holders have commended, saying it will go a long way in boosting the growth of SMEs.
It will help us to grow organically. Aside growing organically, it will also help us to develop talent. It will also help us to develop technology. We will leverage on innovation, we will leverage on creativity, and we will advance as the practice continue.
In the meantime, the federal government has supported 6 startups in Edo with 5 million naira grants through the National Social Investment Programs Initiative. In another development, the Securities and Exchange Commission has issued new rules on registration of fixed income existing securities. The fee structure which applies to the registration of existing fixed income securities is to provide clarity on applicable fees on registration of existing fixed income securities for domestic issuers, among others. Next are the closing figures of trades on the floor of the exchange. With business news, Abdul Karim Zurmi.
Thank you very much, Abdul Karim, for the business package. Next for us on the program, we'll take a look at some of the papers we have this morning.
And our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Cheobi, is in the studio. Happy Independence Anniversary, Bayo.
Thank you, Juma. Good morning. Good morning, Kinsley.
Right, Bayo,
good morning, Nigeria. Happy 59th Independence Anniversary.
Okay, Juma.
So we'll begin today's review of the papers with the Blueprint newspaper. Just beside the masthead, you can see we now receive 100% remittance from Discos. That's coming from TC and Bors. Just below the masthead, Nigeria, 59 years of back and forth with, that's on page 12. And mob set 3 kidnappers ablaze in Abuja. You find that on page 18. NDIC stakeholders lament Islamic banking constraints. You find that on page 34. Buhari to Nigerians on 59th Independence Anniversary. Let's unite to attain our goals. With riders, harps on good governance culture. Tax state on fiscal transparency. We shouldn't despair despite challenges that's coming from former President Goodluck Jonathan. Shown divisive tendency, APC says. And Trump writes Buhari congratulates Nigerians. You find that on page 16. And the picture story there, President Buhari, President Buhari in the middle, Chief Justice of Nigeria, Justice Ibrahim Tanko Muhammad, right? President, National Industrial Court of Nigeria, Justice Babatunde Adejumo, second left, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, second right, and others during the commissioning of Annex Building of National Industrial Court of Nigeria by the President in Abuja on Monday. Army needs spiritual help to defeat Boko Haram. That's coming from the Chief of Army Staff, Borate. You find that on page 6. At the bottom plate of the Blueprint newspaper, Buhari pledges adequate funding for judiciary. You find that on page 5. Tragedy in Imo as generator fumes wipe out family of 3. That's on page 5. Auction women to get 1,500 for antenatal HIV test. That's on page 16. Bauchi police nab 185 robbers, kidnappers, and governors impersonators. You find that on page 15.
All right, let's also take a look at the front page of the Punch newspaper. The lead story is on the Independence Day broadcast by the President. And that's also the kicker, Independence Day speech. Buhari moves NPower, school feeding, and others to new ministry. With details on pages 2 and 71. 2 writers there. We share common goals with Nigeria, says Trump. One other writer, all is not well. That's according to Atiku. Will address challenges, the Senate says. Now, below the headline there, you have 2 photographs of Showore, who has been tried at the Federal High Court. Court orders DSS, that's Department of State Services, to remand Showore till Friday. Details can be found on page 16. And below that, you have a number of headlines. Let's take them very quickly. Damage caused by Fatu Ibo still haunts me. That's attributed to Busola. EFCC rearranged, says Governor Suswam, on alleged 3.1 billion naira fraud. Kano tackles malaria with 8.5 million mosquito nets, page 42. Bauchi governor's impostor arrested for 37 million naira heart scam. Infection hits Queen's College again. 1,000 students leave school. Details on page 8. Oshibajo meets Benue and Ebonyi governors over boundary dispute. Details on page 14. Now, up above the nameplate of the Punch newspaper, car dealers lament as customs shut sales outlets. Car dealers lament as customs shut sales outlets, page 51. Knox as Borete seeks prayers to defeat Boko Haram. That's page 8 of Punch. Federal government plans 4.6 trillion naira borrowings and debt to hit 30 trillion naira. Page 51 also of the Punch newspaper. And 2 earpieces beside the nameplate. NYC approves white shoulder-length hijab for core members. That's page 68. And on page 51 in greater detail, South Africa approves commercial flights for Air Peace. Bayo.
Well, let's concentrate on the 59th Independence Anniversary. President Muhammadu Buhari has enjoined Nigerians not to despair, but to be more resolute than ever because the future of Nigeria is very bright. In the nationwide broadcast, the President emphasized that the present challenges will give way to a stronger and prosperous Nigeria. There are 5 key points that the president emphasized. One of them is that the president called for unity for all to enable the nation benefit from the good governance, inclusive economy, and to defend and protect our nation. He also asserted that the administration would uphold the right of expression and association. However, where purported exercise of such right infringes on right of other citizens or threatens or undermines the national security, firm and decisive action will be taken. On the issue of discourse, he says, yes, it's good to have national discourse on politics and religious issues. However, we need to make sure that it is healthy. So, and we must remember our past lessons so that we don't tread the path of distrust and hate that eventually always lead to hostility and destruction. He emphasized also that Nigeria supports free trade. However, any kind of trade that will undermine job creation in Nigeria will be frowned at. On P and ID, he says all those who were involved in it will be held accountable. Senate President says Nigeria has come of age, and everybody who is in Nigeria and across the nation, there is much to be proud of and being in Nigeria. Speaker Gbajabiamila also urged Nigerians that as a nation, we are better together. As a nation, we should continue to pray and sustain our unity, and we should see our nation as indivisible, irrespective of our current challenges. The People's Democratic Party also hail Nigerians and says that the party calls on all to be patriotic and stand up for unity and survival of Nigeria. The All Progressive Congress say we should shun divisive tendencies. As a nation, we are better together than we are apart. The president of the Christian Association of Nigeria also says that there's nothing anybody can do. Nigeria must all put all divisions above them. God has already put our destiny together as a nation. We need to accept that as a reality and embrace one another and work hard. So there is optimism across the nation, and the hope is that the nation that is united, that is reconciled in oneness, has the challenge of rising to the highest peak of its endeavors.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we have, but there are other headlines we read. So
yes, well, from the courts, you now have the situation whereby the convener of revolution now was presented in court yesterday. The Department of State Services charged him with 7 counts, which includes treasonable felony, cybercrime, and money laundering. However, there was demand for his bail, but the defense counsel urged that the court should grant him bail. The prosecution refused on the grounds that already the bail granted him after the 45 days has lapsed, because now that he has been produced in court, there was no need to talk about bail, and the bail that was granted him has lapsed. So all the entreaties by the defense counsel that the order of the court was not upheld was overruled. Justice Ijeoma Ojukwu ruled that now that he has been arraigned, the earlier bail granted has lapsed.
All right, now there's the other story about Queen's College.
Yes, Queen's College, this is the second time that is coming up, and it's very worrying. The last time, it was infection from the water supply system. This time around, I'm not quite sure what it is about, but then something critical must be done about that, because that can cause serious hazard to so many students who are in that environment. The other danger is what happened at Dutse Alhaji yesterday. One chance, which is a highway robbery that is becoming prevalent in Abuja. Unlucky 3 of them had chanced one lady. She raised alarm, and the chancers were pursued. Unfortunately, they stopped the car. Rather than hand them over to the police, they set them ablaze. The consequence is that this thing is prevalent from Maraba up to Berger Junction, up to Kubwa, up to the airport road. You have them there. But the concern is this. All along this route, you have police vehicles stationed. And sometimes they don't notice these things happen. So it will be better if the police vehicles move along the road, so they will see these victims that are often thrown outside of the car, and they will be able to help and, if possible, pursue them. because standing stationary, they will not know what is happening along the highway.
In fact, that's what happened yesterday at Dutse Alhaji, which on the outskirts of Abuja city, that the robbers who were operating in typical one-chance fashion had pushed their victim out of the vehicle, and some Okada riders, that's to say bike riders, saw what happened, and the presumption was that, you know, this was a typical mode of operation of the one-chance robbers, and they gave the vehicle a chase and blocked the vehicle, and of course raised alarm, and unfortunately there was a mob justice that occurred there. Now, for the Queen's College, the incident is happening within a couple of years, you know, since the last reported one that occasioned the death of 3 students of that institution. It appears to me that this is a public health issue. Now, if the school is overwhelmed, as appears to be the case, first there's the Lagos State Ministry of Health, and there is also the Federal Ministry of Health. I mean, the report is already there in the papers. I mean, pupils have been leaving the school. About 1,000 of them, a number of them were reporting at the sick bay. So if the school is already overwhelmed, then the public health authorities should move in if they need to fumigate the entire compound or premises or campus. They should undertake that and proceed.
The sanitation and the water system.
That's right. And of course, you know, there are also the report of the knocks as Buratai is seeking prayers to defeat Boko Haram. It's said to have organized a special prayer session, you know, or seminar for the country to be able to overcome the threats of Boko Haram.
Boko Haram is an unconventional war. Conventional soldiers cannot win conventional war. You will recall that the insurgency that started in Afghanistan started with Russia, and up to today, America is there, all of them are there, and it's still going on. So out of the frustration, that's why you're calling for prayers. But there has been positive development combined by the Nigerian military and the Joint Military International Task Force. They are actually decimating them. But the pressure last week was that they were dispersing into Sudan and Central African Republic. But their strategy is hit and run. Hit and run. And so we need to be very vigilant.
You know,
civilians and soldiers.
Right now they are hungry because there's no food. So let's now go to the editorial, which is from the Guardian newspaper, Nigeria at 59. Bayo.
Well, fear of going over all the good things that everybody has said, the Guardian is highlighting and asking questions. What is there to celebrate after 59 years? If you ask me, I would say 59 years, if a child was born that day and he started walking, by 59 he will have 1 year to reach 60 years, the age of retirement. As a nation, we have moved forward. 30 years of civil rule and 29 years of military rule. If we blame the military for dragging us back, we now have at least a year and 30 months more than the military rule we have. We need to begin to get our acts together. What the Guardian is raising is that we need to look at our place of Nigeria among nations. Nigeria should overcome the idea of a cliche being the biggest nation on Africa, the hub for all the black race, and sit up and meet the challenges of respect for Nigeria and Africa. And he concludes by saying that the world will not respect Africa until Nigeria ends that respect.
All right, Bayo Toyebe, we'd like to thank you for being around. Once again, we hope you enjoy the rest of your day, which is Independence Day celebration.
Thank you.
Okay, it's still Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. We're taking a short break now. When we return, we'll get into our conversation segment. First, we'll have our guests discussing the broadcast a moment ago by President Muhammadu Buhari, plus the second part of the Nigerian story at 59.
The board, management and staff of Nigerian Shippers Council felicitate with His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, JCFR, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and the good people of Nigeria on the 59th Independence Anniversary celebration. We wish His Excellency and His Cabinet God's guidance in piloting the affairs of the nation to the next level. Long live the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Signed, Management.
They are there at the crack of dawn. They are there busy preparing while we rise for our day. They are there silently, guarding, waiting, listening, and watching. They are there ready in the sky above and the waters below, in the blistering heat of the day, in the dead of night, willing, indefatigable, determined in the defense of the sovereignty of our country. They are our first line of defense and our last. They who have paid the ultimate price in defending us. They are fathers and uncles. They are mothers and sisters and girlfriends and boyfriends. They are brothers and cousins and best friends and neighbors. They are classmates, colleagues, and citizens of this nation. They are our defenders and deserve our respect, our prayers, our thoughts. Nigeria, please support our armed forces.
Dear Mommy, you went out that night with the baby in your tummy, but you did not come back. The baby is very fine and she eats and sleeps a lot. Everyone says that you are in a better place, but I miss you so much. I keep asking them, where is the better place? But nobody answers me. Auntie Kemi just hugs me and says, go and play. Mommy, I miss you. Please, when are you coming home?
I still do miss you, Mom. And in honor of your memory, I'm a doctor today working with the MTN Foundation to save mothers and children every day.
Ending mother and child mortality in Nigeria is dear to us. We will keep strengthening this most important bond just for you.
The NTA ETV Annual Expo is here again. This time, it's the 13th edition with the theme Promoting Unity and Innovations in Youths as Agents of Change through Science and Arts. It promises to be captivating as youths across the nation showcase their unique skills and innovations in science and arts, make new friends, and showcase their rich cultural heritage. Join us at the NTA Headquarters Arena, Area 11, Garki, Abuja from Sunday 20th October to Thursday 24th October 2019. For more information, participation, and sponsorship, please call these numbers. NTA ETV, promoting learning.
About an hour ago, President Muhammadu Buhari, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic, delivered his address on the occasion of the 59th independence anniversary of the Republic. We have guests with us here in the studios now to discuss that issue, plus the second part of the Nigerian story at 59. Let's first welcome Malam Garba Shehu, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Media and Publicity. Malam Garba, pleasure to have you, and happy independence anniversary.
Same to you. I appreciate.
All right. Also here with us in the studios, we would like to welcome His Excellency Dr. Chris Akomas, a former Deputy Governor of Abia State. Your Excellency, pleasure to have with us right here in the studios.
Thank you, and happy independence.
Okay. And also here with us in the Abuja studios, it's another familiar face on Good Morning Nigeria, Dr. Abdul Rahman Abu Hamisu, the researcher, the political scientist, and public affairs analyst. Abu Hamisu, happy independence anniversary.
Wish you same. Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right. And joining us from our Jos Network Center, another regular on Good Morning Nigeria, General John Temlong is former National President, Alumni Association of the National Defense College. General Temlong, happy independence. And I'm sure you have greetings for us from the plateau.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so Jume, let's commence.
Yes, our guests are here to talk about the 59th independence anniversary. I'll start with Malam Garba Shehu. What is your comment on the President's independence broadcast? We just heard it. So many issues have been traced, so many resolutions to some issues. So what's your take on it?
It's a big basket of so many good issues. This is the fifth broadcast by the President, and in line with the tradition that he has set for himself, you can see that it is a speech he opened with a homage to the nation's past heroes, those who contributed to making the country what it is today. And then, went on to also commend the armed services of the country who are engaged, making sacrifices, every day, trying to preserve what we have inherited from our own, forefathers. And the president also had words of commendation for public servants and entire citizens of the country, for all of the contributions that they have been making. The president dwelt a lot on the need for unity in the country and the need for inclusion and partnership. You can see clearly that the president is making a reach out, deliberate one, to state governments to engage in good governance and in effect be on the same page with the government at the center. The president also had made several appeals, to the citizens of the country, to come along. He went out of his way to define change by his own, perception, that Nigerians voted for it. But he said change will not just fall from the sky, that there must be preparation on our own part to make attitudinal changes. The president had also made accountability, had served his function of accountability as a leader of this country. He had rendered account of what he has done on the major policy, issues on the basis of which he believes he was elected into office. He dwelt on matters of security, how far we have come, how well we are doing, and what is being done currently to, particularly, he cited the police that is being restructured, the recruitment of about 10,000, constables, and the police trust fund, which he said would help, in the funding of these. So the president also had given accountability in the area of corruption, in giving serious warning that we cannot continue with business as usual. There will be penalty and the consequences for wrongdoing on matters of corruption. I would also think that it is important that the president had offered what I will call carrots and sticks in his broadcast. Carrots in the sense of saying, well, we respect free speech, we'll abide by it. We subscribe to the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. But the president gave serious warnings also, for instance, that we are not going to allow, unpatriotic citizens, to pull down or to undermine the efforts we are making to feed ourselves in terms of agriculture through smuggling and all of that. And he warned particularly, the use of technology, and to undermine consensus that has been reached, disregard for the country's past history. And so therefore, while citizens are free, to engage in discourse and debate on matters, there must be respect for issues that are believed to have been settled, a long time ago. There are so many things that he did that must essentially raise aspirations of our citizens, which is the very essence of a national day broadcast in the given circumstance we're in.
All right, Malam Garba Shehu, thank you very much. Let's bring in now Dr. Chris Akumas. From your perspective, what's memorable in the President's Independence Day broadcast?
It's a speech that is, in my view, fully loaded and captures quite a lot. It's like an all-round, speech, taking into account, like it says, security, accelerated sustainable development, and then focusing mainly, it's like just taking us to the focus. The speech shows the focus of Mr. President and this administration going by the next level agenda and not losing sight of the critical issues that are, before us and the challenges. First, the issue of securities and what it was and how we have done. Then on the economic front, how we have had this growth, continuously for 9 quarters after the, coming out of recession. And majorly what intrigues me is the time given to issues bordering on the unity of the country and the need for us to exercise restraint in what we say and what we do. And as I was listening to the speech, what quickly came to mind, talking about free speeches, free association and all that, is the common statement credited to one of African leaders who said, freedom of speech I guarantee, but freedom after speech I cannot really guarantee, because what we say in my local Igbo, statement, there's something that is said. When you are saying things or doing things, make sure that what you say will give opportunity for you to still relate and reconcile with the other person. Don't do things or say things without considering that it's with words are very powerful, and how we say it, how we present it matters. So there was that emphasis on that, and to say the truth is one of our problems now, and referring that, linking that up with what is happening with technology, apart from the issue of cyber crimes and all that, all these fake news and, people using technology, which is good. We have the positive and negative sides of everything, but pushing the negative side of it so far as to destroy what we have is a big issue. And going right down to the point of capturing the issue of revenue, generation, and the need for those that are involved to know that there is need as we plug the leakages and expand the revenue generation areas, that there will be consequences for those that don't do what should be done. But recognizing the contributions of all, from our past leaders, the founders of the nation, those that are working now, those that have been working, and going forward, looking into the future as it affects our feeding ourselves, making use of our own things, and then focusing on things that will enhance the growth of our economy, targeting the youth and the women, talking about all these programs and the creation of the new ministry to make it more robust and more focused is something that is great. And when we look at the problem of exporting jobs by importing things that we can grow to feed ourselves, I said to myself, this is like telling us, hey, my people, stop doing what we are doing now. Because what we've been doing over the years is that you have your own pot of soup, or let's say plate of soup. In that pot, you have all sorts of things, fish, snail, meat, and all that.
Towel, roundabout.
Rishi. But instead of counting what is inside your pot of soup, you are counting what is inside somebody else's soup. And that is the problem, because you can never, from your position, count correctly and exactly what is there. But because you have abandoned your own, you won't be able to be focused and manage it well. And so I think that is just a short summary of the whole thing. Let us hold what we have, count it well, use it to advance because it makes for better dignity, integrity. And the speech is for me, really great. You know, you can't say everything to detail, but it captures this, and it's a lesson for us, and it's a path for us to know this is how to go, where we are going, and this, I remain focused. There is no deviation from what the agenda has been, but now to say, let us all working together. And the point of what the P and ID scam is, and what it means to what has been happening to us, is something for all of us to learn from and to work towards ensuring that things like that will never happen, and that we will win this war, and win it. We must. Is an important statement.
Thank you, Dr. Chris Akomas. Dr. Abdulrahman Abu Hamisu, let's have your opening comment on the president's speech.
Well, it all depends on who is relating with the speech. The speech is a chronicler of events that has taken place from the founding fathers to where we are today. It is equally an account of what the government was able to do in the last 4 years before it was re-elected. It was also a note of warning, yes, that every action will elicit some level of consequences.
So there's a shift from the previous speech of last year?
Yes, yes. And for me, this is what is appealing to me, because governance is about consequences for every action. And that came out clearly, because that is what we were looking forward to seeing in the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. You know, the mentality all over Africa, not only Nigeria, is you can do anything and get away with it, nothing will happen. So if today, despite the Continental Free Trade Agreement, Nigeria is shutting its borders to say, look, the right things must be done. We're not saying we're not going to do business with you, but we're saying that the legal framework governing businesses must be obeyed. And that was one thing that we took for granted when the president took over. He's a process person. And because he's a process person, we usually feel that the president is too slow and that he's not acting very fast. But despite all of this, you could see that in rendering account of what he has done, he could tell you about corruption. We've signed mutual assistance agreement with other 59 countries that we have this mutual agreement with to really treat issues of corruption beyond the shores of this country. That is institutionalization. We know in Nigeria that the problem has not been lost, but the implementation. We will come to that. But again, having the framework in place is something that is very, very good. For instance, apart from the ad hoc and arrangement for the treatment of humanitarian crises, as well as disaster management and then social development that has been disseminated in various ministries, now it has been brought under one umbrella as a ministry. This shows capacity for problem solving and understanding issues to provide solutions. So for me, the speech is fully loaded. It gives accounts of what government was able to do. In fact, like the issue of social investment program, it is something that we've been implementing in this country, but the result has been dismal. This is the only time that you could hear people saying that, okay, they really benefit from something like that. And if you look at the governance model of the president, when he was talking about rebounding from recess, using agriculture to grow the economy, now it is something that we expect to see taking a step further within the context of the next level agenda. Because if you've tried something, and I love something that the president said, it's a learning from the mistakes of the past. This is humility in governance. The arrogance that goes with people in authority to say we know it all, if not all, nobody can do it, we've never committed any error. I think that in itself shows that the government itself is learning. So the speech is fully loaded. It talks to our challenges. It talks to the way forward. It talks to what the government is doing now. It talks to what the government is going to do in the future. And it talks about the new, I will call it the new strategy. And the strategy is simple, that there is consequence for whatever action. I want to see this extended not only to our neighbors, but to ministers and government appointees. To say that you are not guaranteed your seat until you are able to do the work you are supposed to assist Mr. President to do. So I was expecting to see that in the speech, but it isn't there. But I know that there is a framework for delivery, and then that framework is with the SGF, and that the government is going to monitor deliverables, because it is the sum total of these deliverables that go into the national wealth, and which we measure whether positively or negatively. For instance, what is happening with our borders? What is happening with our borders is a collaborative effort that is driven by the leadership of the customs to say, Mr. President, this is the right way to go if we will continue to create jobs for ourselves. So for me, this is the first time I'm seeing a speech that is multidimensional, that is speaking to so many issues within a very short period of time that people can relate with, and then it is out there for us to engage with.
All right, Abu Hamisu, thank you very much. Let's go over to General Temlong in our Just Network studios. General Temlong, let's have your take on the President broadcast.
Thank you very much, Kingsley. And I think what my co-contributors have said in the studios is something that was shifting. And I think what should have been captured as the speech would have been State of the Union address or State of the Nation. Now, paid the supreme sacrifice and who are daily out there to keep us safe have been duly recognized. And I think that is good, because that is an added impetus for people to know that when you are serving your country diligently as a patriotic officer or soldier, you are being recognized by the country and recognized by the highest authority. And so we wish too that Nigerians too should follow in that line to recognize our heroes and those who are fighting day and night and paying the supreme sacrifice to keep us safe, to allow us to sit down here and discuss today. Be that as it may, I think the aspect of security was well dealt with, but I think we need to go beyond that, because when people had that the 30-something, even just an average of 14, it means you are recruiting only, you are going to send only about 16 policemen to a division or a local government. And that number will not do anything with what we have today. The major problem we have with crime prevention in this country is the inability or the lack of capacity by the police to be able to police the country well. And you can see even from your network program is that people have resorted to jungle justice. Yesterday you said 3 people were burnt in Abuja there. Why? Because there seems to be a lack of absence or the absence of justice. And when people perceive that there's absence of justice, it's not out of the fault of the police. Their numbers are inadequate. The courts are even inadequate. So you have a problem where people resort to self-help, which is dangerous for the country, because that way innocent citizens are being caught sometimes and being punished this thing, but nobody has a right to wrong a wrong with a wrong, right a wrong with a wrong. Nobody has that right. So we should look beyond that. And I'm happy to what he has addressed. Some of the problems in disaster management in this country has been endemic. Year in, year out, we hear that floods, people are being raped, villages rendered homeless. I recall in 2001, when I was at the National War College, which is now National Defense College, our theme was on disaster management. And my own study tour group went to Russia for a study of their own system. And we found out that it was a full-fledged ministry that was responsible for disaster management, which was just almost under the Ministry of Defense, because most of the first responders you have something to do with the capability and capacities that is endowed in the armed forces. Yeah, so what they have done now, if we have created a whole ministry to look at that, I think we have moved forward in the right direction. But I think the important thing is that government is a continuum. And for the fact that the president has identified the fact that we are learning from the past mistakes, I hope to, down the line, his lieutenants will understand that government is a continuum, so that they will be able to learn from what others have done and what others have put in place to correct certain things that have been gestation. This is a PDP government that has done this. This is the military that has done this. We should stop this backpassing. After independence, the black person was on the British. Yet the British left infrastructure that were being used in this country. And either we couldn't cope or we couldn't improve on them. The railways were running, P&T was working, mills were delivered in people's homes. Here in Jos, milk could be ordered from VOM and they would deliver fresh milk in your home just like in London. And all one not. The civil service was working. At the end of the year, the accounts of governments was balanced. Law and order was the order of day. You see, there was a great respect for the state. When the civilian government came, we started passing all the blames on the British. When the military came, we started passing all the back on the civilian administration. The same thing we keep back passing. Now we must learn to face our future with hope and trust. We must learn to make sure that what we are out to do as a nation, we must learn from the mistakes. We should know where we are coming from, where we are now, and where we are going to. And the most important thing is that there has to be sanctions for misdemeanors. Nobody is above the law. We are seeing what is happening in America and Britain now, where there's rattle in their government. It should be the same thing here too. That government officials must be held accountable, Nigerians must be held accountable, and there must be a performance yardstick where if you do not meet that performance, you should be shown the way out. The question of recycling must be looked at. Yes, there are experiences. How do we gather the other many Nigerians that are out there who can actually help in nation building? We must open the political space. We must open the space for other Nigerians to come in and give in their dues to contribute to the development of this country. And we must, as a nation, continue to make sure that peace is a work in progress. National unity is work in progress. It cannot be assumed. It's just like when you marry a wife, you have gone to the registry or to the church or the imam and sit down, you think, oh, you have married her. No more courtship. Those nice words and niceties that you used to give her, taking her out and the rest will stop because she's your wife. And you think there'll be love in your house. No, your house will not be. So we must make sure that national unity, peace and development are work in progress that will make sure that every Nigerian seems to have a sense of belonging. There has to be righteousness and justice that is available to all Nigerians. And I want to commend the president for capturing all these things. But the important thing is that those who are working with him must key into his vision, must key into what he is saying. It's not just a speech that will be done, but a speech that should be studied and see how in each ministry will come up with. The diversification is fantastic because if you go down the line and see what has been our oil population growth over the years, we have never gone beyond 2 million barrels and the rest, and yet we have been depending majorly on a budget on oil. So when you diversify to the extent that we're able to rely more on agriculture and what God has given us, the creative arts and the Nigerian, developing and investing in the human capital that we have, and the youth bulge that we have, managing it in such a way that it becomes something of a national asset, not a problem for the country, not a national security problem. We will be able to go beyond what those who think we cannot go out of this country. So definitely we must work towards actualizing and changing the youth population that we have into a productive and into the asset that the nation needs, because the human capital is the most important capital for any nation. And God has blessed us with a vibrant youth population that we must harness and make them very, very productive.
All right, thank you very much, General Temblong, there for your reaction to the president broadcast. Well, gentlemen, let's also look at the other aspects of the president broadcast. Obviously, as comprehensive as it is from the comments that you have said, perhaps the speech might have made a few other additions or a few other subtractions. So that's part of what we'd like to evaluate. First, Dr. Chris Akumas, tell us something from your perspective. There are three issues I would like to place on the table. The first is as follows. The president broadcast appeared to be shadow boxing on 3 issues. 1, intergovernmental relations. Considering the major challenges that the polity faces from the subnational entities, that's to say the state governments and the local governments, whether in the conduct of local council elections, whether in the finances of local governments, whether in the state House of Assembly, these are matters, of course, that everyone in the country who is concerned with public affairs always talks about, that state governments and local governments are not sufficiently imitative of the federal government in terms of the direction of the nation and how we can boost, our national wealth. Did the president appear to have touched on that sufficiently? That's one. Second point, we also have this issue relating to international relations, foreign policy. I mean, on the occasion of the 59th independence anniversary, Nigeria isn't an island. We have neighbors. Yes, praise was given to our neighbors for their role in seeking to combat terror and so on and so forth. But we also know the role that our neighbors have also played with regard to the leakages that we find with the inflow of arms and so on and so forth. And on the African continent, we have also seen what has happened to Nigerians. South Africa is an example. So Nigeria's relations with the rest of the world, that appear to have been a moot point. And the third issue, of course, is population. As I said, the president recognized the fact that, look, our population is both a challenge and opportunity, but what should be done seems to be vacant.
Thank you, Kingsley. You see, when I made my first statement, I said there are, a number of issues that may not be captured to detail, having taken this is a 53-paragraph speech, and if you look at it, you see that issues of power was actually brought to fore, and the emphasis on the need for the growth to be effective only when we can achieve this, and that is why this partnership with Siemens and the German government. The issue of our the militancy and oil theft in the case of bunkering and all that, then you come right down to these points that you have just made. Oh, the president just came back from the 74th United Nations General Assembly, and a lot was done on that stage, talking about foreign affairs, for international relations and all that. So maybe I wouldn't know, but if any statement for me was going to be made, it would have been also a kind of one-paragraph statement, because the details and what has just happened is like taking our holistic foreign affairs issues to the United Nations, talking about what is happening with other countries and relating with them. So, yes, there are issues that may have been captured that were not captured. For me, the other part that was not well captured is the issue of what the government is doing with our businessmen and business in Nigeria that have been contributing a lot, talking about PPP and all that. That was not, given the kind of distance. But these are things we have been on, talking about them, looking at the inauguration of the Economic Advisory Council and all that. So it may appear too repetitive, coming back from the 74th United Nations General Assembly, and then coming from all this that we have just done to go back and dwell on those. There is no one speech that can take everything. I think this really tried to capture quite a lot.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Chris Akumas. Just before we give the opportunity to the other guests to also respond to whatever gaps might have been observed in the president's speech, or what feelings that they would have with regard to what they think the speech ought to have covered, we are going very briefly down to our State House correspondent, Jide Onifade, who is there to give us a situation report at the Aso Rock Presidential Villa on the change of guards, which is part of the activities marking the independence anniversary today. Jide, good morning. What's the situation report at the villa?
And Jema, good morning as well. Kingsley, today is Independence Day. I expected you to be on white and green attire, but you are in blue. Well, you'll tell me the reason why you put in that later. But here at the Presidential Villa, the stage is set for the Presidential Guard parade. And you can see, as you can see, just right behind me, outside this arcade, you have the guards preparing, rehearsing for the final commencement of the event. The event is scheduled to take off by 10 a.m. Indeed, and by then, all these empty seats are expected to be filled by then. And talking over the seating arrangement here, we have the red seats here. The middle one is for the president, and that of the vice president, the Senate president, the speaker, the Chief Justice of Nigeria, and other officers. Just on the left of the president, we have these white seats here, and this one we will have the service chiefs will be seated here, and as well as heads of military and paramilitary agencies will be here. To the right of the president, we have the green seats, and that's where the ministers will be sitting. And as I'm seeing them, it seems some of them are already arriving, and some guests are also coming in. Just here we have the diplomatic corps, the community. They are all also here. Some of them are already coming in. We can also see other guests coming in. Now, like I said, it's going to be a great day, and by 10 o'clock, after the guests have all seated, we expected the president will come in and the event will take shape by then. And before then, too, we expected the guards to be on parade. That's before the arrival of the president. And like you said, what's going to happen here? Lots going to happen. You know, it's a special day, and what makes this special, because change of guards, happen here every week. It's weekly basis. But what makes this special is that the whole battalion, the 177 Guards Battalion, are here presently, and in the next few hours, then we have the 7th Guards Battalion located here in Asokoro coming in to take over, and that's where the beauty of this thing will happen, when you will have the color, the color parade, so they call it, and so many other things. So, Kingsley, like I said, the president will be releasing the pigeons. We have them already there in the cage, 59 of them, and the president is also going to cut the independence cake. It's a great day, and like I said, it's a new day in Nigeria, and we should be happy. It's our independence anniversary as well. So let's just hold on studio until 10 o'clock, when you will rejoin us for the live broadcast of this event.
Much, Jide Onifade, as you indicated, we will of course be back to you in the course of the day for the proceedings there at the change of guard ceremonies taking place at the Aso Rock Presidential Villa. Jide Onifade, our correspondent there, thank you very much. Let's come back to the studios here, where we still have all our guests, Dr. Abu Hamisu, with regard to the issues that perhaps the speech might have been covered.
Well, there is this sector that I would have loved the president to really talk about, which is missing, which is the education sector. Yeah, the president has done a lot in pioneering in some number of ways, areas, sectors, subsectors that are supposed to add value to the economy. But if you are not building the human element that can take advantage or support this very particular initiative, then we'll be back to square one. Our educational system, by its very philosophy, only award people certificate. And it's simple. You are found to be worthy in character and learning. so you are given a certificate. And now the president has come up with a very brilliant idea, which is the Creativity Industry Financing Initiative. They're supposed to give loans to our creative industries. But you ask me, how many creative schools do we have? Sometimes we have this initiative and you don't have the people that will take advantage of this. So for instance, our polytechnics are supposed to produce such persons are gone to teaching accounting, public admin. And what you get from that is certificate, not any kind of skills or creativity. If you go to our technical schools, they are now moribund. The equipment, they are obsolete. You can't find anything meaningful. And the economy we are pioneering is an economy that is skill-based. For instance, if you take what the Bank of Industry is doing in terms of loans, you want somebody to come up with a business plan to say, I want to set up rice mill. Now you ask yourself, which of these universities these skills are being taught? So for me, I know the president made an attempt, I think that is ongoing, to reform our curriculum. What is being done in this regard? If you bring 50 young Nigerians together to say, okay, this is a task, accomplish it, I bet you will not find many that will do that. All they want is the bureaucracy to absorb them. And we are saying that the bureaucracy cannot absorb the graduate we are producing. For instance, at a point in time, India was producing 260,000 ICT engineers for global consumption. So this is not production for the national economy. It is a production for the global economy. Now, we're talking about brain drain. For me, I don't see it as a challenge. If, for instance, what Cuba has done with doctors, they realize that the world have a need for doctors, and they are producing doctors for export. But in our own case, we are lamenting. You know why we are lamenting? Because only fewer people go into studying that. And even studying it, the environment is not really conducive. So I would love to see a deliberate policy that align our school curriculum with the kind of national economy we are building. That is one. The second thing has to do with healthcare. I know that in the past there were deliberate attempts to have, at least in every local government, primary healthcare. Now, most of those have crumbled. I recognize one fact, that the burden this government has to shoulder is lack of funding. Because when you have, governance is about spending. And when you have myriad of challenges and the funds are not there, then there is a challenge. But if you have the funding and the challenges are there, you have little challenge. But one thing that is lacking is that drive to say, the little we have, let us manage it. I don't believe in until you give somebody hundreds of billions, but the little million that has been given to you, what did you do with it? Now, this is one thing that Nigerians are expecting from President Muhammadu Buhari, because people expected him to bring his austere lifestyle measure to bear on national issues. If you look at him, he's not a rapacious leader that consumes without producing. We want to see that replicated in some of these very particular areas. And lastly, in the area of security and combating terrorism. Combating terrorism in Nigeria, I think we need to commend Nigeria on two fronts. One, evolving a deliberate policy that has depleted the number of Boko Haram, which is Operation Safe Corridor. It's first of its kind in the world, and other nations are coming to study it. But for people that are uninformed, they feel that, okay, Boko Haram members are being captured by the government and being released again because they do not know how it works. It is a window of opportunity that has been provided by government for those that have recognized the firepower of federal government and the supremacy of the government and are willing to down their guns. And these are mostly people that have been conscripted, because there are people that were deliberately conscripted, and to keep them within the fold of this very particular group, they send them to go on expedition in their own locality so that people will see them and recognize their face and make it very difficult for them to leave the group. And the government is saying, if you drop your weapon, we are willing to rehabilitate you. And that has depleted a lot of number of Boko Haram fighters. Now, the only thing that is left, which is what the president touches mildly, the issue of physical transparency. It goes beyond that. Now, to combat most of these issues we are facing is about anti-corruption. It's anti-corruption in the sense that the people that are given the mandate to execute the mandate of the state are now using their position to extort the people. And in such a situation, there is hopelessness. Now, the security apparatus of the state, for instance, like His Excellency touch on the issue of police. Now, the police is living above the communities. The police is not embedded in the communities. So nobody is exercising any oversight over the police. So, for instance, people take cases to police station, they feel that they don't get justice. So tomorrow, you are not encouraging them to take that case to the court. So they take laws into their hands. So all of these areas are areas that we want to see deliberate reforms that really place the people at the center and speak to the interests of the people.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Abdulrahman. We'll be taking a break right now. We will return to Jos after this time out.
She dey come my house today. I'm gonna tell her to marry me. Remember what I taught you about playing music from the internet? I'm gonna play romantic music for her. The body remains small, make it done. Will you marry me? I have a surprise for you. Google, play me a romantic music. Everything is okay. Network is shaky. Play me a romantic music. Google, play me a romantic music. Maybe I should go.
Don't let poor internet ruin special moments. Join the super fast and reliable 4G network and get double data.
Now the watch. Climb this thing now, not be only to connect lights. Come you and yourself now. Now wow. Come down now. Oga Kasali electrician, who will they look for with this? Oh, Oga Kasali, come help us fix this wire now.
Sorry, I no longer carry out illegal connection. It puts the lives of people at risk and can cause fire outbreak and disrupt power supply. I will never be part of anything that has to do with this any longer because change begins with me.
Oh boy, what do you talk makes sense? Oh boy, we could carry this ladder from over.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Thanks for rejoining us. We'll be going to Jos now where General Temlong is waiting. I can see him there. General Temlong, we've heard from all our guests in the studio. We've talked about security, power, corruption and everything. Time is not on our side right now. Can we have your closing comment on the president's speech?
Thank you, Juma. I think what we need to do about the intergovernmental, like I said, government is a continuum. Now, if you brush the National Confab Report 2014, the relationship between the federating units, the states, were really enunciated, and I'm sure if you take a count, a survey right around the country, you'll find out that most of these governors have spent more time in Abuja since the inauguration than in their various states. We advocated that they are the federating units, they must carry out their own function. That's why you find out that the pressure is so much on the central government. They are now saying everything is federal government. Federal government cannot do what the federating units are supposed to do. So also at the states, the local governments have duties to perform in their various, they're the closest to the people. And so if these governments at all levels function very well, our national security problem will be greatly tackled. Now, you talked about elections. We recommended that, in fact, without exception, that INEC should take over the elections from the state electoral commissions. And funding was direct, and that any local government that was not an elected, duly elected government will not accept funding from the federation account. And allowing removing them from the constitution so that state governments can be able to create more local governments. But that doesn't mean that you get more money because you go and create 100 local governments from 10, and then you want 100 local governments thinking that you're getting more money. No, that the formula for sharing, and a formula for sharing to safeguard the states from getting money from the local government, like what is happening at the federation account, was what we replicated at the states. So I think we need to look at those things. The important thing about security, we have to tackle it head on, because without security, you can't do anything. I think it was a misinformation, or people have a perception about the topic of the seminar. We say tackling spiritual, using spiritual means to tackle Boko Haram. I think it's something that is worth looking at. You see, I have said it up 10 times here on these studios, that in these studios, that you do not defeat ideas with guns. You defeat ideas with superior ideas. And what are the ideologies of the Boko Haram and the ISWAP? It's dealing with religion. So you must counter the narratives that they are sending out there. And who will counter those narratives? Is it you and me, or religious leaders? Religious leaders must counter those narratives in such a way that the wrong teachings that they are bringing to indoctrinate is what is happening, that they are having more recruits going in. When you demobilize, when you reintegrate, a new set of recruits go in because they have brainwashed them, they have indoctrinated them. So you need to have a constant means of changing that narrative and keeping ahead of them in such a way that you cut them of their source of oxygen, and that is the recruits, those whom they are going to recruit.
All right, General Temlong, thank you very much there for your closing thoughts. General Temlong, former president of the Alumni Association of the National Defense College. We'd like to thank you for your contribution to our conversation this morning. I'm back here to Abuja Studios. Malam Gabashew, let's get your closing thoughts. I mean, we raised, a number of issues with regard to what might have been as part of inclusion in the present broadcast. There's another issue, but of course that would be a bit too elaborate, to be dealing with, which is the if you like, the rise of a super ministry. Now, Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management, and Social Development, encompassing a broad range of agencies and tasks. But first, and then of course finally as well, what's your reaction to what has been said as to what should have been included in the President's address?
Briefly.
Well, I would rather that I use the balance of my time to dwell on what we ought to be talking about in that speech. And I think that it's very clear from the President's statement. He has put in place the new Economic Advisory Council, which he said is an independent one. New policies will come. And the President is clearly saying that whatever changes will come, there will be mitigation for the effects of those policies on those who are poor. And I think that should be recognized also. And at a time when you hear people complain that there is no cash in circulation and hardship, you can see that the President has given a directive for the release of about 600 billion between now and this is a huge amount of money to reflect the economy, and has given strong commitments on ongoing capital projects. These ones that are being particularly handled by the presidential initiative on infrastructure. He mentioned them: Lagos, Ibadan, Abuja, Kano,
Second Niger
Bridge, and the Mambila Power. And all of that, some of which he said are due for completion in 20. My parting shot is to say that the President has left his imprint on that speech, which is a leader who is that of a leader who is compassionate and caring, and who doesn't cut off from the low level, masses of our own people, who form the basis the base of his own political support.
All right, on that note, we'd like to thank you, Malam Garba Shehu, Senior Special Assistant to the President of Media and Publicity. Thank you for being with us. We also would like to appreciate Dr. Chris Akumas, former Deputy Governor of Abia State, and Dr. Abdurrahman Abu Hamisu, researcher, political scientist, and public affairs analyst. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us on this very special occasion of the 59th Independence Anniversary of the Federal Republic. We wish you all a happy celebration. So it's on that note we will come to a close to this edition of Good Morning Nigeria. I would like to thank you for tuning in. Tomorrow we are back, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Of course, we'll be discussing other aspects of the Nigerian story at 59. But in the meantime, please be advised that we shall be handing you over to our crew. That's the network crew who will be at Eagle Square in continuation of the Independence Day celebration. Thank you very much. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And I'm Juma Yusuf. Enjoy the rest of the day.